Hello and welcome back, Mike. It's such a pleasure to have you back on Unabashed You. I was so excited you said yes to our superpower series.
I had so much fun last time. I was very excited to be asked back. Yes.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I really enjoy hearing that. All right, let's just dive right in. A current show you're watching. I know we talked about oh gosh, the James Spader.
Blacklist.
There you go, Blacklist. But what are we watching lately?
You know what? It's completely different spectrum altogether. It's just a little show called Chow House, and it's these a bunch of chefs that get to go to different spots in Italy and compete against one another. And I know it sounds kind of but it's I love it because I can relate because I really loved going to Italy and I picture myself in their shoes because I love to cook. So it's exciting to me. In some ways I watch what they do and it's like I could do that. And other times, they'll do some fabulous dish. And I'm like, oh no, still got a lot to learn. So it's fun. It's fun.
Oh, and what was I going to say? Well, think of how popular a British baking show is. I mean, and
Yes.
that's people baking. I mean,
Hmm.
it's so this doesn't really sound all that, different or wild or anything, but it's wonderfully enjoy it. Two of your things put together, Italy and cooking and enjoying and being maybe inspired to try some of the things that they're doing. I think that sounds great.
Yes.
Your biggest crush growing up, who'd you have a crush on?
Marie Osmond.
Of course, yes. I had a crush on Donnie, so we were right there. We
There
were
we
right
go.
there together. What is it? Country. I'm a little bit country. I'm a little bit
A
rock
little
and
bit rock
roll.
and roll. Yes. Yeah. I remember it would come on Friday nights and I would be just glued to the set. And at first my mom was like, what? I didn't even know you liked country music. And then she apparently saw that I was, looking at her. And I I don't know. I mean, she's a nice looking woman, but I was thinking gosh, that'd be seven. So just fascinated.
Well, she's pretty and why not be drawn to that as a kid and just like,
Yeah.
oh, that looks like fun, or she's
Hmm.
pretty or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get that.
exactly.
Totally get that. What's the thing you are most afraid of? And this is probably more on the rational side, unless you want to dive deep. It's
on
like,
the on the rational side, oh gosh, the rational side would be probably being lonely, not being alone. I don't
okay,
have a problem being alone, but actually being lonely, where I feel like I don't have a connection to anybody out there.
okay,
Fortunately, I haven't had that too often in my life.
right.
Um, but irrational heights. I mean, it's so bad. Sometimes I have been watching a movie and they have some death-defying thing going on, and I feel like, oh my gosh, it's like, wait a minute, Michael, you cannot fall through the screen. And
Right.
so yeah, completely irrational. Yes, I know that a fall from a certain height could cause me problems, but it
Yeah.
it's totally it's completely irrational. So, but it
Yeah,
doesn't stop me from flying.
right, exactly. Do you feel like it's gotten heightened as you've gotten older? Because I've noticed myself and I've heard other people say as they're getting older, that like movement and some of those things kind of start shifting a little bit. So I wondered if you'd notice that.
In some ways, I'm a little better about it, and in some ways, worse. Like I talked about the flying thing. I have found coping mechanisms that seem to work more with me with flying. The plane doesn't move any less. I usually would just put a big set of earbuds on or headphones and plow through it, so to speak. But as far as I manage my expectation, like I know I've got to hang Christmas lights, and so it's like, okay, it's only this many feet. I'll get up there on the ladder as long as the ladder feels stable. I'm good. Now, if I
Right.
were to just stand on the roof and look down, I will get that weird vertigo.
Oh,
So it just
right.
depends on the situation.
Right. And I like that you mentioned like your mind, sort of what you're telling yourself and what you're
Mm-hmm.
noticing, because sometimes what you're noticing, you can either talk yourself into having more fear or out of having more fear. So
Without question.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. And then for some reason, the scene in the latest Mission Impossible where he's dangling from the train. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's thrilling, but
oh
no
man.
way.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was a crazy scene. Oh my goodness. What's a random fact that most people would not know about you, Mike?
Um, I am actually a very insecure person. And it seems on the outside, most people I don't think they would know it. I've kind of
No.
learned to put myself out there. When I was a kid, I noticed it more. I was watching a video that my uncle had taken of the family, and the
Mhm.
look on my face, I don't even know what was going on really, but I was painfully shy in the photo. I'm in the video, and I said, gosh, I don't want to come across like that. So I practiced in the mirror, things that I thought were not what I wanted to see or wanted to be. I would practice the delivery of who I wanted to appear like as a person. I looked at it, okay, here's a little messy, get that to get all the typical vanity points, but then stand tall,
Yes.
smile if you can make eye contact, all that stuff. So even if you're feeling like it's not there, at least from the outside, you get rid of what that is. And some of it is, like it's the term fake it till you make it. It works a little
Right.
bit. When you come across as confident, it tends to put the other person you're talking to at ease. You kind of even out the footing, and then
Right.
it's worked for like, gosh, I'm 54, 53 now, so yeah, it's working.
Yes, and that a fake it till you make it, or that idea that, when you smile, even if you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to smile right now,
Mhm.
your brain doesn't know that it wasn't quote unquote a natural smile. So there is something that still happens inside our brains that help us to feel better when we, act as if, or fake it till you make it, like you said. Wow. Well, that's really, I would never, ever, ever have guessed that about you, Mike, that you had viewed yourself at any time as an insecure person. And I'm wondering, is it insecure, or did you, I guess shyness can be really coupled with insecurity. What do you think? Do you think they have to go together, or what do you think?
No, they don't have to. Obviously, they're two completely different things, but yes, they do kind of hinge on one another, and it's kind of a slippery slope. When you start to feel unsure, you get more shy, and then they kind of pile on themselves. Whereas I think
Yeah,
as
for
you
sure.
try to rip apart a little bit of it at a time, you rise from it, and that's I usually can. You mentioned the whole get your mind in the game. If I can kind of get a hold of myself early on, kind of talk myself through it, I usually, regardless of the situation, I kind of get to where I need to go. It even helped with the first interview with you because I was like, gosh, what will I talk about? Why do they want to hear about me? And it's like, well, she asked about you, so talk
Right.
about you. And it works.
Right. Well, and that's the whole point, is that, you're already an expert at that. So
Right.
just, that's all that's required, is be you, and
Mm-hmm.
let's have a conversation. I'm curious about when you decided, okay, I'm shy, I want to grow through this stage, or this, whatever, and you were started to practice in the mirror, and you practiced who you wanted to be, and you did all these super intentional things. One, I'm like amazed that you had the mindset to do that. And then I'm wondering how old you were at this time.
I was probably about 11. I
Oh
guess
my gosh.
you got to figure the advent of the portable video camera. My uncle had he had money, so he was one of the first ones with it, and so he would video everything. So I think it's kind of fortunate that I was able to see myself early on, because in the era that I grew up in, you never saw yourself really except in a mirror, in motion.
Right.
You'd see still pictures, but those are the typical, posed, and so being able to see myself as I normally would move was I think that's the only really real reason that I paid attention to it at such a young age. Now, kids see themselves in video
Uh,
from almost birth, and so they get to kind of refine themselves sometimes to a fault. But
right,
you
right.
get to do more with it on an early
Right.
basis.
Well, that's incredible that the video camera, seeing yourself, ended up being the catalyst for deciding, hey, I want to present in a different way than how I'm
Yes.
presenting. I think Extraordinary, truly extraordinary. Okay, and I'm going to come back to that little story in towards the end of our conversation.
All
I
right.
can't wait to share with you something. Okay, so we're in our superpower series because summer is the time of blockbuster hero movies, whether we like it or not. Some of us like it,
Love
some of
them.
us not so much. Who is your favorite superhero and why?
I would probably say, the typical Superman. I know it's like
Yep.
everybody's going to say that.
Yep.
Um, and some of it is, and I know you haven't asked why, but I'll tell you anyway. A lot of
Yes.
it is the fact that this guy came from somewhere completely different, was able to, even though he came in with all the strength and everything, he still had to find his way to fit in and then figure
Right.
out, okay, I gotta run with this pack on a normal basis, but only use the things that make me different when it helps somebody else. And so
Right.
that's what I see in
Oh.
him, aside from the obvious being able to, do cool stuff.
Wow, I never thought of it that way before, that he's taking what's different about him to help somebody else, what makes him different and to help somebody else. I mean, yes, it's obvious when you say it, but I've never had it worded quite like that. And I like that. And that's kind of why I think this is a really fun series is to, to kind of have some fun with sort of some of these different things. And yes, I definitely wanted to get the why in there. So thank you for sharing the why. Okay, if you were a superhero, as in, the hero superhero, what superhero power would you want to have?
I'd love to fly. It would eliminate the other problem I have of being afraid of heights.
Oh, yes, that would
Yep.
certainly do. If you knew you could fly, yes, that
Yes,
would certainly be helpful. And I have to
absolutely.
tell you, Mike, that was mine too. That was
Mhm.
mine too, was being able to fly. I just thought that
Yes.
that would be very handy,
Mhm.
being able to navigate through traffic and get where you want to go pretty quickly. Yes,
I
I
haven't
think,
I haven't given up. I hope to one day be able to do it.
yeah. Plus, it just seems fun. I mean, beyond the practicality of it and
Absolutely.
getting over a fear of heights, it
Mhm.
just seems like fun.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
See things from a different perspective.
Yes, exactly. A different perspective. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the human superpower that you have, because I would like to hear what your human superpower is.
I think my human superpower is the ability to be empathetic, like almost to a degree of a superpower. When someone
Ah,
is going through something, a lot of times when it's not a good thing, I'm able to kind of help them through it, not just help them with it. A lot of times people,
right.
they don't necessarily just want sympathy. They don't want somebody to just feel sorry for them. But they want that empathy, someone that can kind of get through whatever the task is with them, not rushing them to a conclusion or rushing them to an emotion, but um, feeling feeling what they're feeling and making them feel less alone.
That's a really good point because yes, we can come alongside somebody, right? And that's
Yes.
definitely necessary, but being able to kind of honor their timing and just, be there and continue to be there and continue to be there as they work themselves through what they're going through. You're right, it cannot be rushed. It
Yeah.
cannot be rushed. Do you find being empathetic um, that you also take on the emotions so that maybe sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, when I say exhausting, I don't mean it necessarily in a negative way at all, but it does zap your energy.
it it's very true. You take on, you're basically sharing their load. So yes, that emotion,
Yes,
whatever that they're taking off, you're putting on for a bit, and you're helping them
yes,
to move whatever that is for however long it is that you're choosing to be involved with them in it.
right.
And I picture like this person's trying to move a boulder up the mountain like Sisyphus almost, and and now you're pushing it right along with them. So yes, depending on what they're dealing with and how long or how big a thing it is, yes, mentally it's exhausting, but it seems to lighten their load, and so it's two people dispensing with a
Yes.
big thing.
Oh, yeah. I like that. I like that word picture. I like that word picture a lot. That's really beautiful because you're actually helping them carry that load so that it's a little bit less heavy for them in their angst and in their pain. How do you think other people could find their superpower?
I think people need to dispense with the idea that they need to be like anybody else. Most of the time, we're told what normal is. We're told what we should be, what we should wear. And when we get out of that, when we get by ourselves, we hear that little bit of ourselves. It's always been there that tells us this is what you should be. This is the direction you should go.
Mm.
And you have to get out of the noise so you can hear yourself.
Oh, that's
And
such good
then
advice.
and
Get out of
it's
the
there,
noise.
and then you follow that.
Yes, I love that. That's so good. Oh my gosh, that's such good advice. Get out of the noise. It's there. You need to listen to it. Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Okay, I want to share with you what I think your superpower is.
Okay.
And it's interesting because we don't know each other all that well. I mean, we've had some email exchanges, we've had a couple of recorded conversations,
Sure.
and we follow each other on Instagram. So there's some familiarity there. I think, and this goes back to kind of like what you were talking about earlier on. I think you have a discerning eye.
Hmm.
A discerning eye. So I feel like that translates across everything that you've talked about since we started talking, which was as a kid, you realized I'm shyer than I want to be. You saw yourself with that discerning eye, and you said, I choose to improve this about myself.
I
And
love that.
then when you are in your empathetic mode, you see that someone else needs what you only, what you can give, what you can share. So that's another time that you have your discerning eye. And then lastly, you are an incredible photographer, absolutely incredible photographer.
Thank
Every
you.
picture that you've taken that I've seen has been like exceptional. Another moment to take that discerning eye and decide this is what I'm taking a picture of, and look how you decided to frame it, and look what you're saying through this picture. So what do you think about that?
Gosh, I love all that. I don't think I've had that put quite that plainly before. Um, One of the things that you mentioned about seeing the thing through the lens, through the eye, I was I
I'm
was
sorry,
sitting at,
Siri started talking to me. I don't know what
oh no,
he's
it's fine.
doing.
I thought it was something in my
No,
environment.
Siri, I don't know what is happening. He is trying to talk to me. I have him on do not
Wants
disturb.
to be wants to be part of the
He
conversation.
wants to be in here. Okay, go ahead. Tell me what you were saying.
We were Jennifer and I were at the beach one time, and I
Mhm.
was sitting there, and this um, hummingbird comes into view for a moment, hovers. I had my camera, and I wanted to take one of those, epic still photos of them in flight, and it took off. And I said, okay, well, opportunity missed. And she said, no, be patient. Just take a moment. It'll come back. And we waited for another half hour. I don't know if it was the same bird, but a bird came into to frame, and I was able to take the shot. And I'll email it to you later on. Um,
Yes,
but the patient art got by my partner. Jennifer was,
right.
some people that I've been around in my life would have been like, okay, yeah, go, or they wouldn't have wanted to wait, even if I had suggested it. But the fact that she was willing to sit
Right.
there and wait, because she knew it was important to me. Um, and from that, I got the shot. And then it also taught me, some of the art that you feel that you're going to get, yes, some of it's talent, some of it's equipment, but a lot of it's patience.
Oh,
And so hearing you talk about that discerning eye is cool, for lack of a better way to put it,
yeah.
because it has taken a lifetime to get to that point where you've refined the view that you have, and I guess it must be evident because you summed it up.
Right. Yes. And I feel like sometimes I'm an intuitive person, and I just that those are things I just I see in you. And then I got really excited as you started talking about yourself as a kid, because it was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell them what I think at the end.
Yeah,
Once I hear what
spot
you,
on.
yeah. So I really like your point too about being patient. I mean, that's another time, patient in art. And then you talked about too about like, if to turn down the noise, you have to be patient because
Mhm.
you have to be willing to take a moment and turn it off, get still, be quiet and listen. And I know for me, that's not an easy thing to do, but it's very necessary.
It is.
So it sounds like you have found in your art when you're taking photos that you've learned that it's okay to wait for a while until I don't know, maybe it's an intuition, like when to stop. Like, okay, well, it's been a while. I think I'm good.
Hmm. Yeah, that's accurate. Sometimes the shot that you think you're there for is hasn't shown up yet. Um,
Oh,
yeah, my daughter and I and her fiance, they honored me with asking me to take their engagement photos.
oh,
And in the idea of it, it was going to be a sunset photo, and so I had in my mind the settings I'm going to have and all that. And then we got up to this place, and it was this beautiful, foggy, kind of dark and mysterious spot. And at first, I'm thinking, "Gosh, for engagement photos," but they dug it, and so it's like, okay, pivot. And we were out there for about a part of an hour. And again, some of the shots that in my mind I was ready to take weren't the shots that were the epic ones. It's like that shot that just kind of lined up. They're going to be
uh,
here. This is going to be here. Fog rolls in. I didn't orchestrate that. That shot came
right.
to me. And so it's just cool to just let it show up and just be a part of it.
Yes, let it show up. Wow, that's so good because you're right. There's only so many variables you have control of, and then you have to be willing to kind of release it all and see what, like you said, what shows up and to go from there. I imagine that they're completely thrilled with the pictures that you got.
They have definitely said that they love them all. And I was actually humbled when I saw them. I was like, wow, I did that. It's like, it's fun to be a part of it. It's like sometimes you do stuff that that, okay, yes, I take pictures, but sometimes you see it and you finally go like, yes, that's the one.
That's
That's
so
that's what I'm
great.
looking
I
for.
love hearing that. That's so wonderful. And then you know that you're in that place of being so creative and being able to share that, not just
Mhm.
have that within you, but then to share it in this way of taking the pictures that represent this moment of time that turned out beautifully and then
Mhm.
also reflect their love and the commitment that they're making to each other. That's just so beautiful. Wonderful. Is there anything, Mike, you feel like you didn't get to touch on that you wanted to talk about?
Um, you know, over the course of I would say my childhood life, um, we were my sister and I mostly because we were the oldest, were led into religion, if you will.
Right.
Um, it was you're gonna go to church on these days. You're gonna go to and learn about God, and it's good. So I personally think a relationship with God is a thing to have. Who you worship is who you worship. I know who I do, but I'm not trying to push that on anyone.
Yes. Got it.
Having said that, there was a time in my life where I had, in my mind, a reason to pull back from the church. And I found out that I was not necessarily upset with God, but I was upset with
Mhm.
an instance
Uh-huh.
that I allowed to separate me from Him.
Yes.
But over the course of time, I refined my relationship with God because although the fellowship of the church is something to enjoy, um, the relationship with God is a personal one, and
Mhm.
you can carry Him with you wherever you go. And so I think even though I didn't go the traditional way with it, I still ended up in the place that I was meant to go with Him. And again, it seems like the theme here, even with superpowers, maybe one of my superpowers is patience. My wife would laugh at that. I'd be like, but because God already knew we were going to be here. And so for him to be patient enough to wait for me to go through all of this stuff, and for him to finally go, there you are. And
Yes.
there's that aha moment in that and go like, oh, wow, I want to be able to share that with somebody at some point, that it
Right.
doesn't have to be in the way everybody says it's going to be. You know, the relationship that you have with God, with family, with people, it it has to be the way that it works for you. So
Right.
that's
I really appreciate you bringing up this point, because I was just having this conversation with somebody earlier. They were talking about not wanting to maybe offend or dismiss any quote unquote Christian listeners that might be listening. And I said, well, hold on, wait a minute. For starters, yes, I'm a woman of faith, but this is not a Christian podcast. And by definition, for me, it can't be, because if I
Mhm,
want you to show up as you,
mhm,
then I'm presupposing that you're at a certain place. And I don't want to do that. I
right.
want to be respectful of you having your own experiences to get to where you got to get to where you are right now. I don't want to cajole or convince or do any of those things. If we want to have a conversation about it, great. It's a whole other animal, but it's not, I just don't want to have, I don't want people to think that because I believe a certain thing that they have to be X, Y, or Z to be themselves.
Mhm,
People get to have their own experiences. And
yes.
because you got to have your own experiences, you arrived at where you are and you have that relationship. And I really love that about God, that he really lets us have experiences
Yes.
to arrive, make our own conclusions and to get to that place.
It's phenomenal.
I think it must be so hard, because we know as parents how sometimes you're like, and you want
Yes.
to steer and you want to like,
Hmm.
oh, no, a little to the left.
Yes.
No, a little to the right. And you
Hmm.
want to do that. And not that he's hands off, but I think he's very gracious and he really does let us, really get there.
Yeah.
Um,
I think parenting is the best way to describe it. You look at, we're taught what our limitations are. The baby doesn't know it. Like, think of a baby learning how to walk. How many times do they end up back down on their butt?
all
And
right.
each time they stand up again, sometimes a little frustrated, but they just don't quit until they're finally, oh, cool. And somewhere along the way, we lose a little bit of that. But
Yes.
when we shed what we think of our limitations, we we get that same feeling like that baby, like I could do anything, you know. so
Right.
so yeah, I think we again we have everything we need in that quiet place that's just us, and you know if
Mhm.
we can get away from the noise at some point, we'll see it, and we'll arrive at our best version of whatever we're going to be.
That's right. Well, thank you, Mike. I'm really glad you brought that up, because I've kind of been thinking about that. Like, how do I communicate that? Because, the show is all about being whoever you are, whoever that is, wherever you are. That's the thing. And to keep inspiring, encouraging you forward. Mike, as it was with the last conversation, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I am so grateful that honored me with your time. I really appreciate it, and look forward to staying connected.
It was my pleasure.